In episode 7, Lu Yue was kidnapped by Qi Xuan, who used her to extort Han Li. Han Li arrived at the meeting point arranged by Qi Xuan and easily killed 4 integration stage cultivators. However, he was then teleported by an elder at the Void Refinement stage using a teleportation technique and sent to the main altar of the Heavenly Ghost Sect. There, he continued fighting 9 Void Refinement stage cultivators of the Heavenly Ghost Sect and was again teleported by Elder Lu to the Demon Flame Valley. Working together with 3 other integration stage cultivators, they used the 9 Heavens Demon Flame Grand Formation in an attempt to refine Han Li. Everyone is invited to follow the developments of the next episode. The divine abilities of this person are truly unimaginable. While he is still trapped inside the Ghost Soul Suppression Grand Formation, we must find a backup plan. Otherwise, future trouble will be endless, the purple-bearded man shouted loudly. After speaking, he raised his hand and presented an ancient bronze-red lamp, several feet tall. At the same time, he softly chanted an incantation. The ancient lamp immediately lit up with a pale purple flame. Numerous talisman symbols the size of rice grains appeared on the lamp body and quickly floated about. A stream of purple smoke rose up and, in the blink of an eye, condensed into a vivid-looking purple giant tiger. The giant tiger let out a roar and then charged straight toward Han Li. The beautiful woman standing on a stone pillar suddenly began chanting an incantation as well. A layer of red glow appeared in her pupils. Her clothes fluttered without wind, making her look like a celestial maiden descending to the mortal world. The flesh on her body suddenly shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. Black, elongated claws grew from her hands, forming an extremely ferocious set of talons. The skin on her beautiful face sagged away, leaving only a pinkish skeleton. She lightly descended, her speed astonishing. In an instant, countless after images appeared beside Han Li. A claw strike fiercely slashed down through the air above Han Li's head, causing a violent tremor. A white bone claw imprint extended outward, its 5 fingers sharp like blades, carrying shrill wind sounds and gray-white killing intent as it swept down. The bone claw seemed unaffected by the surrounding sea of blood imagery. Han Li stood still without moving. He simply raised his hand and threw out a small mountain projection, which flew straight toward the bone claw. With a loud boom, the mountain collided with the bone claw and instantly shattered into fragments. The bone claw also cracked with several sharp sounds and then exploded, its killing intent dispersing into smoke, leaving only countless bone fragments behind. As the pink skeleton was about to make another move, a wave of energy like a landslide and tsunami surged forward, slamming into her. Her body was tossed about like a willow branch in the wind, unable to resist it all, and she crashed heavily into a mountain wall, leaving behind a pile of white bones. At this moment, the roar of a tiger echoed through the air. The purple giant tiger broke through the void and charged over, opening its mouth to spit out a pillar of purple light. Han Li swung his hand into a claw shape, and an invisible brute force swept through, instantly dispersing the purple light pillar. However, the claw force did not stop there. It continued forward and grabbed the giant tiger's abdomen. Han Li's hands moved like lightning. One hand seized the tiger's head, while the other grabbed its hind leg. The muscles in his arms bulged like massive iron clamps. No matter how wildly the giant tiger struggled, it could not move at all. Just as Han Li was about to tear the giant tiger apart, the ground suddenly flashed with 4 enormous black spears that pierced through the surging blood sea and stabbed straight toward his chest and abdomen. With a resounding clang, the 4 black spears struck as if hitting bronze walls and iron ramparts, then were shaken backward by a tremendous force. A strange hissing sound followed as rocks shattered, revealing a gigantic black spider beneath the ground. On its head were 2 rows of milky white eyes, and its 8 long legs were sharp like blades. Beneath its abdomen hung a gray, dangling flesh sack. Han Li narrowed his eyes slightly and discovered that the flesh sack was actually the hunchbacked old man, while the black spider looked like an extra mass of flesh growing from the old man's back, an extremely bizarre sight. As soon as the black spider revealed itself, its sharp legs moved again, glowing with a blood-red light. They looked like a pair of giant red-hot shears clamping straight toward Han Li's neck. This time, however, Han Li did not give it any chance at all. His hands still gripped the purple giant tiger as his body plunged downward with overwhelming momentum. His right leg swept out horizontally. With a loud crash, the spider's 2 front legs were shattered into pieces. Its body was also sent flying far away by the tremendous impact, smashing into a stone wall and then being buried under huge rocks. Han Li landed on the ground and immediately exerted force with both hands, tearing the giant tiger into 2 halves. An unexpected event occurred. The purple giant tiger exploded into masses of purple bones, but instead of dissipating, they suddenly surrounded Han Li. A thick mist spread out, releasing a strange, dense fragrance. It was clearly a rare poison capable of corroding a cultivator's consciousness. "Brother Lu Yue!" Seeing the situation turn dire, Lu Yue cried out anxiously, "Hey, So what if his body is strong? He still can't escape Elder Lu's soul-devouring ghost mist. The pink skeleton, whose bones had reassembled not far away, stood up trembling and mocked. Before she could finish speaking, a heart-rending scream suddenly came from a nearby peak. The purple-bearded man was seen rolling on the ground in extreme agony. His face contorted in pain. The ancient lamp from earlier had been thrown aside. As the mist formed from the giant tiger dispersed, Han Li's figure was revealed. He lightly waved his hand, and the ancient lamp was taken away. After briefly examining it, Han Li stored it in his storage pouch. At the same time, a flash of starlight appeared as a tiny thread of light shot back into the purple-bearded man's glabella. The man rolled his eyes and shouted toward the bone formation on the left, "You still haven't found a chance to launch a sneak attack?" As soon as he finished speaking, a figure appeared and quickly retreated backward. It was the one-eyed giant man who had not yet made a move. At this moment, he was covered in a suit of bone armor and tightly gripped a blazing red giant axe, which was clearly a powerful, high-grade magical treasure. After steadying himself, he only stared at Han Li warily, with no intention of risking his life to attack. He had personally witnessed Han Li defeat 3 integration stage cultivators without giving them any chance to resist, and it was obvious that Han Li had not even used his full strength. The sense of helplessness he felt when facing such an opponent was something he had not experienced in a very long time. Seeing the giant man appear, Han Li withdrew his gaze and turned to walk toward the bone formation ahead. From the folds of his clothing, it could be seen that the gravitational force created by the blood sea was still acting on his body. Although he moved slowly, he showed no sign of fatigue. When he barely reached the formation, Han Li suddenly bent over and hugged a pillar there. With a surge of strength in his arms, he lifted it up, causing a tremendous rumble. The giant ghost skull above seemed to awaken, its face revealing a hint of fear. The entire formation shook as it was lifted higher and higher until it was completely uprooted from the ground. A shrill scream came from the giant ghost skull as black light around the formation rapidly contracted, transforming into a black command token that fell into Han Li's hand. The blood sea covering 100 Jang radius also receded significantly. Han Li put away the command token and then moved toward another formation. At this time, the hunchbacked old man and the purple-bearded man had both struggled back to their feet. The woman who had transformed into the pink skeleton had also returned to her previous beautiful appearance. The 4 integration stage cultivators of the Heavenly Ghost Sect could only watch as Han Li destroyed each formation one by one. Their expressions were extremely complicated, yet they all tacitly refrained from intervening. None of them spoke, as if they were waiting for something. After half an incense stick's time, once Han Li had collected the final command token, he suddenly raised his eyebrows, a strange look appearing on his face. "It's finally here," he muttered softly. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and forcefully spat out a torrent of flames. These were the demon flames he had previously swallowed. The demon flames shot into the sky and gathered in midair, forming clusters of rotating fire wheels. Then they merged into 4 long, pitch-black fire serpents, each several zhang long, which split up and charged toward the 4 opponents. Seeing this, the 4 integration stage cultivators were immediately terrified and simultaneously brought out several defensive magical treasures to protect themselves. Although they continuously used many defensive methods, their backs were drenched in cold sweat. The 4 black fire serpents were only 3 to 4 zhang long, yet they were formed from the condensed essence of all the 9 heavens demon flames within the valley. As high-level cultivators of the Heavenly Ghost Sect, the 4 of them understood very well how terrifying this kind of demon flame was. Even as integration stage cultivators, if they were careless for even a moment, they would suffer greatly. They truly did not expect that one day they would have to experience the feeling of being trapped within the 9 heavens demon flame. At this moment, a sharp tearing sound of wind suddenly rang out. A streak of white light flashed into view within the valley, then split into 4 and fell downward at an astonishing speed, as if it had teleported. It was clearly 4 dazzling sword lights, gleaming brilliantly. The sword lights spun in a circle, transforming into a ring of light over a zhang in diameter. Almost the next instant, the 4 black fire serpents slammed into it. Boom! 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 An explosive series of loud blasts echoed. Flames erupted wildly on the surface of the 4 rings of light formed by the sword lights, and waves of shock rippled outward through the surrounding void. The 4 black fire serpents charged fiercely, yet in the blink of an eye they dispersed, turning into scattered black smoke that spread through the air. Above the valley, space trembled and a man appeared. He looked to be over 40 years old, with well-defined features and a refined, scholarly air. His eyebrows were sharp like swords, giving people a sense of aloofness and bleak detachment. The 4 dazzling sword lights once again turned into 4 streaks of white light, flashed, and flew back into his body. "Martial Uncle Duan," the purple-bearded man finally relaxed, and upon seeing the figure standing in midair, he was overjoyed. Han Li stood where he was, his pupils slightly constricting as he stared straight at the newcomer. The man needed no introduction. He was Duan Renli, one of the two great ascension cultivators of the Heavenly Ghost Sect. Duan Renli swept his gaze around. Seeing that the Demon Flame Valley, a forbidden area of the sect, had been devastated, and seeing the 4 integration stage cultivators, his expression did not change, but the corner of his eye twitched slightly. His head dipped a little as he looked at Han Li. He made no other move, only extending one hand and pointing his 5 fingers downward. His 5 fingers suddenly became unusually radiant. Spiritual light flickered continuously at his fingertips. A series of humming sounds rang out as streak after streak of white light shot out from his 5 fingers, each one swelling as it met the wind. They then transformed into more than 100 white bone flying swords over a zhang long, accompanied by piercing whistling sounds as they surged toward Han Li. Han Li, seeing this, merely raised one hand and lightly formed a hand seal. Immediately, muffled explosive sounds rang out from within his body. His figure suddenly grew larger. Golden light blazed from his body, and golden scales sprouted out in an instant, covering him from head to toe. Countless white bone swords immediately struck his body. Golden and white light burst and interwove, and a sound like a torrential downpour rang out. Rings of airwaves spread outward, sweeping through the surrounding void. Within 10 jang of him, bizarre silver-white small lightning flashes appeared one after another. At the same time, within the sky over 100 jang above, space trembled and a small seal appeared. It rapidly grew, becoming like a pavilion, dragging down countless streaks of black light as it descended from the heavens. Before it even truly fell, a terrifying spiritual pressure pressed down so heavily that it was hard to breathe, twisting the void and filling people with dread. With an earth-shaking explosion, the black seal stopped at just over a zhang above the ground, unable to descend any further. Although the man had just used 2 divine abilities, it had actually only taken 2 or 3 breaths. Now, as the white light withdrew, the scene below was revealed. Han Li was still standing there, golden and unmoved, without the slightest injury. His right arm, covered in golden scales, was holding up the black seal. His feet had sunk into the ground, and long cracks had split open around him. Han Li looked up at Duan Renli in midair and curled his lips into a grin, revealing snow-white teeth. His right arm moved. A deafening sound rang out at once, and the seal, as heavy as Mount Tai, was flung away by him like a piece of wood. It shot off at an unimaginable speed, vanishing from sight. Han Li stomped his feet and soared into the sky. With a single flicker, he appeared eerily not far in front of Duan Renli. One arm blurred, and he threw a punch at his opponent. Duan Renli's face remained unchanged. He only narrowed his eyes slightly. But at this moment, behind Han Li, the void flashed and a silent silver ring appeared. Han Li seemed to have anticipated it. He quickly turned and lightly chopped. The ring was cut into 2, producing an eerie scene. The 2 halves of the silver ring, covered in talisman symbols, suddenly vanished into the void. In the next instant, they reappeared strangely at both sides of Han Li. With a light clink, Han Li felt his body being cut. The 2 halves of the silver ring suddenly rejoined, becoming a complete ring again and locking around his body. Spiritual light surged on the ring and suddenly tightened rapidly. A creaking, grinding sound rang out as it rubbed against his golden scales, sparks flying. It seemed as if his body would be crushed directly by that enormous force. "Brother!" Lu Yue had already fled to a corner of the valley. Seeing this, she immediately cried out in alarm. The purple-bearded man and the others felt delighted inside. Han Li, however, did not panic at all. He clenched his teeth and gave a low shout. Explosive sounds rang out from within his body once more. 5 blue points of light suddenly appeared on his chest and abdomen. Muscles bulged across his entire body, and his figure grew larger again. He moved his hands slightly. Countless talisman symbols appeared on the surface of the silver ring and began to jump wildly. With a cracking sound, the ring shattered. Only then did Duan Renli show a solemn expression. His figure quickly retreated backward, his sleeves trembling as if he intended to use another divine ability. In the next moment, he had already retreated more than 100 jang. But behind him, Han Li's figure suddenly flashed into view. Without a word, Han Li threw a punch. His fist shimmered with golden light, as if it had been forged from gold. Wherever his punch wind passed, it tore open a rift in the void. Duan Renli abruptly turned and opened his mouth to spit out a massive blood cloud, condensing into a blood-colored light shield that blocked in front of him. Boom! Han Li's punch slammed into the blood shield. The shield caved in, then exploded. The fist directly pierced through Duan Renli's chest. Yet Han Li did not rejoice at all. Instead, he let out a cold snort. In the next instant, Duan Renli's entire body dissipated like foam. The whole person turned into a white skeleton that was hooked on Han Li's arm. More than 100 jang away, space trembled, and Duan Renli's figure appeared again. He looked as if he had not suffered much loss, but his face was somewhat pale. The successive changes made the purple-bearded man and the others exchange glances. all seeing fear in each other's eyes. This is unbelievable. I have been in seclusion for several hundred years, and in this realm there has appeared a body cultivator who can compare to a great ascension cultivator. I have not yet asked for your honored name, Duan Renli said slowly, observing Han Li as if confirming his own thoughts. Fellow Taoist Duan praises me too much. My surname is Han, and my name is Li, Han Li said with a smile. He casually tossed the skeleton aside. The golden scales around his body gradually dispersed, and he did not continue attacking. So it is fellow Taoist Han. But since you have such great strength, why did you come to the Heavenly Ghost sect to cause trouble, using strength to bully the weak? You must give me an explanation, Duan Renli said, his voice suddenly sinking. Hey. The Heavenly Ghost sect truly knows how to talk. You seized my person first, and then you used a secret technique to forcibly teleport me here. I'm the one who should be demanding an explanation, Han Li said, the corner of his mouth twitching as he sneered. Duan Renli froze upon hearing this. His gaze shifted to the purple-bearded man. What happened? The others looked at each other. The three remaining people all looked toward the purple-bearded man. Reporting to Marshal Uncle Duan, I received information that someone had trespassed into the sect's mountain gate. When I went out, I encountered this. This fellow Taoist Han has formidable divine abilities, so I activated the restriction and had him teleported here. As for why he came to the Heavenly Ghost sect, the reason is not yet known. The purple-bearded man hesitated slightly, then answered. Immediately investigate this matter, Duan Renli ordered sternly. Yes, the purple-bearded man hurriedly agreed and flew out of the valley. Duan Renli looked at Han Li without speaking. Han Li looked down at Lu Yuer, his gaze signaling her not to worry. He then gave a faint smile and looked calmly at his opponent. After about the time it takes for one incense stick to burn, the purple-bearded man returned and respectfully transmitted a message to Duan Renli. Duan Renli's brows knit slightly, then his expression quickly returned to normal. The purple-bearded man hurriedly withdrew to the side. So fellow Taoist Han came to the Cold Flame sect, Duan Renli said slowly, lifting his head to look at Han Li. That's right, Han Li replied indifferently. I didn't expect your sect to be so tight-lipped. A powerful body cultivator like you, and there was never any hint of it. That really is something worth celebrating, Duan Renli said, blinking, his expression looking like he was smiling through tears. It would be better if fellow Taoist Duan spoke of something else, Han Li said with a faint smile. The matter is basically clear. You have some grievance with an outer sect elder. Everything afterward was a misunderstanding. If that person is already dead, then the matter is also clear. If you and I keep fighting, it won't accomplish anything. How about we stop here? I'll have someone escort you and your companions out. What do you say? Duan Renli fell silent for a moment, then said, Right now your cultivation is not high, but it's obvious you used some method to conceal your true strength. Today, the other great ascension cultivator is not in the sect. If we continue fighting, the gain won't be worth the loss. But if it were you, if you were brought to a sect for no reason, surrounded and attacked by the sect's entire force, and then they tried to brush it off with a single sentence of misunderstanding, acting as if nothing happened, would you accept that? Would fellow Taoist Han agree? He stared fixedly at Han Li, smiling without really smiling. State your conditions. Duan Renli let out a cold snort, and a strange light flickered in his eyes. 100 caddies of refined yin spirit stone. Han Li smiled and answered without the slightest hesitation. As soon as he spoke, the entire valley fell into an uncanny silence. 100 caddies of yin spirit stone? And refined too? You destroyed the grand formation restriction and disrupted the sect's forbidden ground, and you still dare to make such an outrageous demand? Pure delusion. After a brief silence, before Duan Renli could even speak, the purple-bearded man and the other three began shouting insults one after another, their voices filled with anger. Fellow Taoist's lion's mouth appetite is truly impressive. Each mine can only refine 1 caddy of yin spirit stone in a year. Fellow Taoist Han demands a full 100 caddies in one breath. Don't you think that's excessive? Duan Renli's expression did not change, but his tone grew colder. Han does not believe that the Heavenly Ghost sect, with such a long history, cannot bear to part with this little yin spirit stone. Han Li gave a faint smile and said, It seems you intended to cause trouble from the start. If you are unwilling to leave now, then stay here forever. Duan Renli's face turned savage, as if Han Li's attitude had completely enraged him. As soon as he finished speaking, a vast curtain of bloodlight suddenly appeared around him, illuminating everything in a blazing red. At the same time, a terrifying spiritual pressure spread out, making everything sluggish. He opened his mouth and spat out an ancient blood-red banner only a few inches long. The banner spun in a circle and suddenly enlarged. Killing intent swirled as a pattern became visible on it. A horned giant ghost, fierce and sinister, with a green face and yellow fangs, its eyes tightly shut. As Duan Renli chanted strange incantations, the bloodlight on the ancient banner flowed, stirring up wave after wave of foul, bloody wind. The giant ghost opened its hideous mouth, crimson like blood, and shot out a streak of bloodlight that surged forward with overwhelming force, rolling toward Han Li. Before the light even arrived, the stench of blood had already filled the valley, and the temperature around them abruptly dropped several times over. Seeing this, Han Li's figure in midair retreated slightly backward, then suddenly turned into a shadow, causing the blood-colored light to strike empty space. In the next instant, a tremor suddenly arose behind Duan Renli. Han Li abruptly appeared. His fist, covered in pale golden scales, turned into countless afterimages as he struck, like hundreds of fists erupting at once. In an instant, piercing whistling sounds rang out. Terrifying force burst forth with the fist shadows. Wherever they passed, the void seemed to crack apart. Faced with such a terrifying attack, Duan Renli only extended one finger. Slowly, yet swiftly, he pointed at the blood banner before him. The banner surface immediately spewed out a vast mass of bone and blood cloud, covering an area of dozens of zhang around him. His figure became faint and indistinct within it. The golden fist shadows fell like rain, yet it was as if they were striking cotton. The immense power contained within vanished like stones sinking into the sea, leaving no trace at all. Even more strangely, whenever a fist shadow burrowed in, it seemed to make the blood cloud grow a bit larger. Han Li frowned slightly and immediately withdrew his arm. His body turned into a shadow as he retreated backward. The blood cloud that filled the surroundings instantly surged like a flood breaking through a dike, spreading rapidly to both sides and condensing into a blood-colored vortex. Rings of airwaves spread out like a cyclone, twisting and warping the surrounding space. Rumbling sounds continued without end. Han Li felt the air around him tighten as a massive force surged from all directions, slowing his retreat somewhat. But at this moment, the eyes of the giant ghost on the ancient banner suddenly opened, like two blazing suns, dazzling to the extreme, making it impossible to look directly. Han Li only had time to feel dizzy. Then the scenery around him abruptly became blurred, and he found himself within a blood-colored space in an eerie way. The sky above had become entirely crimson. Below was an endless sea of blood, with a thin layer of faint blood mist drifting over the surface, spreading a foul, fishy stench. A pocket realm treasure? Han Li showed surprise. I didn't expect you also have some understanding. That's right. The Crimson Verdict Heavenly Ghost Banner is indeed a pocket realm treasure, and it is also the sect's secret treasure that suppresses the sect. To be buried here today can be considered the blessing of your third lifetime, Duan Renli said. Wearing a black robe, he hovered in midair with his hands clasped behind his back. His clothing fluttered, and bone and blood swirls drifted around him. Is that so? Han Li asked coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, waves of ghostly crying suddenly sounded from all directions, one after another, as if countless ghost creatures were screaming madly. Han Li's eyelids grew heavy. His will wavered unexpectedly, and a feeling of bloodthirsty agitation suddenly arose in his heart, as if only by immediately charging forward and slaughtering those ghosts could it be relieved. Without the slightest delay, Han Li immediately formed a hand seal and activated a cool, refreshing power that surged out from his lower abdomen. In an instant, it flowed through his meridians. The frantic thoughts in his mind vanished without a trace, and the ghostly howls also disappeared without any shadow. Seeing that Han Li was only slightly affected and then immediately returned to normal, Duan Renli could not help feeling shocked. The soul-confounding blood mist formation is condensed from the sea of blood banners gathered grievances of heavenly souls and 10,000 ghosts. It is enough to enchant the mind, triggering killing, intent, and desire deep within a cultivator's heart. Even I, if unprepared, would definitely fall into it. Yet this body cultivator in front of me was not affected at all. Could his spiritual sense be even stronger than mine? As a result, the killing move Duan Renli had prepared could not be used. At this moment, starlight flickered in Han Li's eyes. His body blurred as he rushed straight toward his opponent's position. Duan Renli let out a cold snort and formed a hand seal. Boom below, the sea of blood churned violently, and a colossal wave of blood surged up, helping him vanish without a trace. Seeing this, Han Li stopped and closed his eyes, releasing his powerful spiritual sense. The space here seemed boundless and endless, while the sea of blood below was extremely bizarre. Even with his spiritual sense, he could only penetrate a few dozen zhang, let alone find his opponent's position. After thinking for a moment, Han Li used a clear vision divine ability. A blue glow appeared in his eyes, and everything several dozen zhang below instantly became clear. However, when he looked farther out, the scenery once again became blurred and impossible to see clearly. Just as he swallowed a stalk of Cloud Gorge grass and activated half of the spiritual power in his body, pouring it into his eyes to fully unleash the divine ability of his spirit eyes, a sudden change occurred. The blood-colored sea surface abruptly churned violently, forming a colossal vortex. Faint, Deep sounds could be heard from within. Seeing this, Han Li did not hesitate. He shot upward more than 100 zhang before lowering his head to look down. At the center of the vortex, bubbles filled the surface, and a gigantic set of remains rose up from below. This skeleton was about 100 zhang tall. Its bones were blood red, as if crafted from blood jade, and countless talisman symbols were clearly imprinted across them. On its skull, as large as a mountain, between two curved horns, sat a dark red nascent soul with eyes closed. Its facial features were almost identical to Duan Renli's. When Han Li saw this, his eyes narrowed. The nascent soul suddenly opened its eyes, opened its mouth, and spat out 7 clumps of essential blood. At the same time, it formed hand seals, and incomprehensible incantations rang out. With a loud boom, the essential blood exploded, turning into 7 supple streams of blood mist like spiritual serpents. A shriek came from the nascent soul's mouth, and the blood mist scattered with eerie bloodlight. A strange scene appeared. The bloodlight suddenly sank and burrowed into the skull of the skeleton. In the empty eye sockets, 2 masses of bloodlight abruptly appeared. The talisman symbols on the skeleton's body suddenly lit up. Thick, viscous bloodlight streamed out from the vortex like a spiral, shooting straight into the sky and enveloping the entire skeleton. Through the pillar of blood, it could be seen that its size continued to increase. The blood pillar fell like a tide, and the enormous skeleton vanished without a trace. In its place appeared a terrifying ghost creature, more than 100 zhang tall. It had a green face and yellow fangs. On its head grew a pair of enormous horns. Its eyes were red as blood. Its entire body was covered in crimson hair, and its limbs were far longer than those of ordinary beings. On its back were a pair of dark purple-black wings. The moment it appeared, the fluctuations from its body made the surrounding air tremble violently. "This is the Netherworld Crimson Blood Heavenly Ghost of legend," someone said. "Interesting," Han Li muttered as he observed the giant ghost before him. With a whoosh, the Crimson Blood Heavenly Ghost slightly raised one hand. A vast sheet of blood-colored demon flame appeared in its palm and grabbed straight toward Han Li. Han Li's vision darkened. A massive ghost claw, nearly a mu in size, appeared overhead. The ghost claw was wrapped in scorching blood flames and slammed down fiercely. Before it even arrived, the violent wind pressure pressed down, making the surrounding sea of blood surge and churn violently. Han Li raised his hand and punched upward. With a boom, invisible brute force erupted, and the ghost claw immediately shattered, turning into demonic flames that filled the sky. Han Li was forced to take several steps back before he could steady himself, his gaze somewhat surprised. The power contained in that blood-colored giant claw was shockingly great, exceeding his expectations. The exploded flames did not dissipate. Instead, they suddenly gathered together, forming a blood mass several zhang wide that tightly surrounded Han Li. Before Han Li could react, he saw the Ghost King wave its hand. A blood-colored ring immediately flashed. He was then seized by a blood-colored ghost claw, caught firmly in its hand with only his head exposed. "Let's see where you can run." The Crimson Blood Heavenly Ghost bared its teeth in a grin. Another ghost claw swept down. Han Li felt a force like uprooting mountains and filling seas rush at him. Bones throughout his body creaked. Even with his level of physical strength, it was somewhat hard to endure. The Crimson Blood Heavenly Ghost was surprised that its mountain-splitting, sea-shaking strength still could not crush Han Li. A trace of astonishment appeared in its eyes. You don't know your own limits," it shouted softly. Thick, massive blood patterns appeared across its body. Its 2 hands suddenly swelled larger. Once again, it used all its strength, pressing down fiercely with that landslide and tsunami force. This time, it only caused a trace of pain to appear on Han Li's face. His body was like a piece of solid metal. No matter how much force it used, it still could not crush him. But at this moment, a burst of golden light erupted from Han Li's body. Pale golden scales rose across him once more. On his chest and abdomen, 5 clusters of faint blue light flickered. Han Li gave a low shout. His 2 hands struggled violently, and a force several times greater than the Heavenly Ghost suddenly exploded outward. The Crimson Blood Heavenly Ghost was shocked as Han Li forced its 10 fingers apart bit by bit. Han Li's figure shook, turning into a golden streak as he shot out from the ghost claw. As he flew, his body rapidly expanded. Coarse, glittering golden fur quickly grew over his entire body, even his face. 2 snow-white fangs grew from his mouth. In an instant, he transformed into a golden giant ape, over 10 zhang tall. A violent aura spread out around him, and there was also a faint, ferocious, ominous presence circling his body. This is the Mountain Peak Giant Ape of legend? The Crimson Blood Heavenly Ghost was somewhat caught off guard. Han Li, now in giant ape form, flashed and stopped in midair more than 100 zhang away. He pounded his chest with both fists, feeling the overflowing power within his body, and let out a long roar. Although his nascent soul was sealed, he had refined multiple true spirit bloodlines within his body. His body had recovered, and he could finally use the secret art again to unleash this divine ability. This stirred emotion in Han Li's heart. No wonder you have such astonishing divine strength. So it's connected to this true spirit? I searched everywhere and couldn't find you, yet you delivered yourself to my door. If the Crimson Blood Ghost banner obtains true spirit blood and is refined again, its power will surely soar. The Crimson Blood Heavenly Ghost said with a ferocious laugh. With that, its enormous body lunged forward. Its ghost claw quickly clenched into a fist. A fist the size of a house smashed toward the golden giant ape, bursting with blood-colored light. The golden giant ape snorted coldly and also threw a punch, erupting with a vast wash of golden light. The two fists, different in size, collided with a thunderous crash. A mountain-shattering, earth-splitting roar spread out, echoing across the sky and causing the sea of blood below to surge with towering waves. The Crimson Blood Heavenly Ghost body shook and was blasted backward. Its right arm exploded, flesh and blood scattering in all directions, turning into blood mist and exposing an arm bone that gleamed like jade. With a tremendous splash, the Heavenly Ghost was driven into the sea of blood, stirring up waves that surged toward the sky. The golden giant ape only shifted slightly before stabilizing its body. Its head dipped a little as it looked down. The churning sea surface slowly returned to calm. But in the next instant, boom! The sea of blood behind the giant ape exploded. Surging blood waves rose up as the Crimson Blood Heavenly Ghost burst out. The arm that had just shattered had already recovered. Bloodlight blazed in its eyes. It was as if the little setback had completely provoked all the ferocity within it. It surged into the void as a vast sheet of rolling blood waves rose and condensed into a blood-colored long spear over 30 zhang long. The Crimson Blood Heavenly Ghost gripped the blood spear in its hand. Then its arm moved, and the giant spear stabbed toward the golden giant ape standing in midair. The giant ape suddenly turned its head. Instead of retreating, it advanced. A golden furred hand extended like an enormous palm falling from the heavens, slamming down on the spear. With a loud crash, the blood-colored long spear just formed was smashed apart, shattering into pieces, and once again turning into a mass of blood pulp. The Crimson Blood Heavenly Ghost was startled and had no time to dodge. The golden giant ape had already rushed to within 100 zhang. Two blurred golden fists smashed down. Unwilling to yield, the Heavenly Ghost raised its left arm to block. With another thunderous crash, its enormous body was struck and sent flying back. The left half of its body was mangled with blood and flesh, as if everything had been shattered, exposing gleaming bone. Just as the giant ape let out a low roar and prepared to continue pursuing, a sudden change erupted from the sea of blood below. The sea of blood violently surged into a massive wave, twisting and deforming as it transformed into an enormous, extremely ferocious blood dragon. The blood dragon opened its mouth and gently closed its jaws, swallowing the giant ape into its belly with lightning speed. Then the blood dragon bared its fangs and waved its claws as it flew above the sea of blood. Its body was over 100 zhang long, bloodlight flowing across it, and it gave off rolling blood mist. Not far away, the Heavenly Ghost had stabilized its body. Talisman symbols flickered outside its body as thick strands of blood shot out from the sea of blood and entered the left side of its body. At a speed visible to the naked eye, its body was continuously recovering. Seeing the giant ape swallowed into the blood dragon's belly, it quickly formed a hand seal and muttered obscure incantations. The giant dragon's eyes flashed with bloodlight. Its long body curled up, and in an instant, it transformed into a gigantic blood sphere. Dazzling bloodlight appeared on its surface, flickering on and off, while its volume rapidly expanded. As soon as the Crimson Blood Heavenly Ghost stopped its incantation, it spat out a single word, break. It happened extremely fast. The enormous blood sphere was pierced through from the inside by countless golden threads, violently churning. Immediately after, with a loud bang, a streak of golden light shot out from within and rushed toward the Heavenly Ghost. Wrapped in that golden light was the giant ape transformed by Han Li. He had only flown out 2 or 3 zhang when, boom, an earth-shaking explosion erupted as the gigantic blood sphere detonated, turning into a massive flash of bloodlight that swept outward. Wave after wave of sky-filling shockwaves appeared, and a howling gale swept clean an area more than 10 li wide. The sea surface surged with furious waves, and even the surrounding void rippled in rings, visible to the naked eye. Although the golden giant ape had escaped in time, it was still affected slightly. Its golden fur was damaged in several places, leaving a few light wounds that did not look very serious. If he had not rushed out in time, even with the strength of his body, he would have been unable to avoid severe harm to his vitality. Seeing the giant ape flying toward it, the Crimson Blood Heavenly Ghost revealed a pair of wings on its back and gave a flap. Its enormous body instantly became a blurry blood shadow. The blood shadow rapidly retreated, widening the distance from the giant ape. The giant ape's power had far exceeded its expectations, so it did not want to clash head-on with him directly. Han Li, still in giant ape form, saw this and his expression sank. The giant ape relied on brute strength, and its speed truly could not compare with the other side's. He simply could not catch up. At that moment, the heavenly ghost let out a shriek. A series of popping sounds rang out as several blood pillars rose up around the giant ape from the sea of blood. Then, streak after streak of blood shadows surged out from within, densely packed, hundreds of them charging toward the giant ape. They were blood-colored ghost creatures with horns on their heads, green eyes, and sharp fingers, with blood mist swirling around their bodies. The giant ape stopped. Golden light blazed around him. His huge body quickly shrank, becoming enveloped by the surrounding blood mist. In the next instant, a clear cry rang out. Then 10,000 dazzling blue rays burst through the blood mist. Countless blue gales appeared in midair and blew the surrounding blood mist away once again. A huge blue shadow shot out. It was a massive blue bird, its body 7 or 8 zhang long. Blue light gleamed on its feathers. It had 2 colored horns on its head, and its wings were broad and immense, far longer than its body. 3 tail feathers extended behind it, making it look extremely majestic. The blue bird powerfully flapped its wings. Countless gales howled outward, and within the wind, long blue streaks of light appeared as they pounced toward the blood ghosts. Pop, pop, dozens of blood ghosts were directly chopped into several pieces, turning into clusters of blood mist. The blue bird spread its wings again and instantly turned into a blurry blue shadow, extremely agile. It broke out of the encirclement of the blood ghosts and quickly flew toward the crimson blood heavenly ghost. Sacred Brocade, Azure Phoenix, who exactly are you? The crimson blood heavenly ghost's expression changed drastically. It immediately turned to flee with a flap of its wings, but the blue shadow was unbelievably fast. In the blink of an eye, it flashed to the heavenly ghost's side. Blue light flickered. Pop, blood light appeared at the heavenly ghost's chest. 3 enormous wounds opened there, deep enough to see bone, and fresh blood sprayed out. The heavenly ghost suddenly twisted around, raising both hands as if to do something, but the blue shadow somehow flashed again and appeared behind it. Pop, several more enormous wounds opened on its back. One of its wings had been cut off, and blood poured out in torrents. Bloodlight flared in the heavenly ghost's eyes. It abruptly turned its head toward the blue shadow and roared in fury. Its ghost claw slashed violently, and countless sharp blood-colored talons formed a web of claws that blocked in front of it. But the blue shadow blurred and vanished again. In the next instant, it seemed to teleport, appearing above and to the right of the heavenly ghost, then swoop down once more. Pop, 3 more enormous wounds, deep to the bone, appeared on the heavenly ghost's right arm, and blood gushed like a spring. The crimson blood heavenly ghost howled continuously and tried to counterattack, but it could not keep up with the blue shadow's speed. It could not even catch a glimpse of its outline. One after another, blurry, eerie blue shadows danced around the heavenly ghost. Its true body could not be seen at all. In the blink of an eye, the heavenly ghost's body became a mangled blur of blood and flesh, and its movements gradually slowed. If not for its incomparably hard bones, and the fact that the Azure Phoenix's attacks could not sever them, it would have already been cut into countless pieces. At last, fear appeared in the heavenly ghost's eyes. It clutched its head with both hands and plunged down toward the sea of blood. At the same time, a pillar of blood rose up from below to receive its body. The blue shadow let out a clear cry. It suddenly accelerated again, turning into an extremely fast afterimage that circled the heavenly ghost. Boom, boom, the nearby sky erupted with a raging gale. Countless blue traces filled an area of several li, crazily slicing through everything. The blood pillar that had just risen from the sea of blood was immediately struck by more than 10 blue traces and shattered with crashing booms, breaking apart and falling back down. Pop. Countless blue threads wrapped tightly around the crimson blood heavenly ghost, like a blue cocoon. The blue threads continuously cut into its body, spraying blood everywhere. The heavenly ghost flailed its hands madly, but it was all in vain. Flesh on its body was continuously shredded. Each time it tried to use the power of the sea of blood to heal its wounds, it was stopped by Han Li. From the moment the Azure Phoenix appeared until now, it had been less than 2 or 3 breaths. Yet the heavenly ghost had been beaten back to its original form. Only a blood-colored skeleton remained. Aside from its head, its body no longer had any flesh or blood at all. The blood ghosts that had swarmed in from afar like bees, because they no longer had power supporting them, had not even reached the area before, completely collapsing and dispersing. Damn it! The heavenly ghost roared furiously. Its huge skeleton spun in midair, as if it wanted to plunge into the sea at all costs. But the Azure Phoenix's speed grew faster and faster, and the blue threads followed, increasing in number. Not only could the heavenly ghost not fall, it was instead blocked by the gale and dragged upward into the sky. Crack, blue threads slashed across the skeleton, producing dense sounds like heavy rain striking banana leaves, making the light around the remains grow weaker and weaker. When a thick blue radiance slashed across, A sharp crack rang out. At last, a small fracture appeared in the Heavenly Ghost's arm. Stop! I admit defeat. The Heavenly Ghost seemed to make up its mind and suddenly shouted. The surrounding gale seemed to heed those words and stopped all at once. The blue giant bird, several zhang away, also slowly folded its wings. Its eyes, glimmering with silvery light, stared fixedly at the Heavenly Ghost skeleton. Countless blue threads immediately vanished, and the gale dispersed. Only then did the Heavenly Ghost let out a quiet breath. Its body immediately plunged into the sea of blood. After a moment, a man in black robes emerged from it. It was Duan Renly. His face was pale, and he looked somewhat worn, clearly indicating that the battle just now had cost this cultivator a great deal of vital energy. Seeing this, the Azure Phoenix's blue light flashed, and its enormous body rapidly shrank, revealing Han Li's true form. The two looked at each other. Han Li wore a bright smile, while Duan Renly's expression was twisted and rather unpleasant. Inside Demon Flame Valley, the four people led by the purple-bearded man were all gathered there. Lu Yur, covered by a silver flame, stood in another corner. They all looked up at the sky. Amid the rolling blood clouds that nearly covered the entire mountain range, there was a gigantic blood sphere that appeared and vanished faintly. From time to time, a few streaks of bloodlight that shook the heart would transmit outward. Lu Yue was somewhat worried, her face full of tension. The purple-bearded man and the others, on the other hand, looked somewhat relieved. From time to time, they cast hostile glances toward the young girl, making her even more uneasy. As high-ranking sect cultivators, they knew well the terrifying power of the Crimson Blood Heavenly Ghost banner. This banner was an inherited treasure of Ancestor Boneflame, a Heavenly Ghost sect cultivator who had ascended to the Immortal realm back then. The Heavenly Ghost sealed within it had once been an upper realm immortal who fell into the Netherworld, perished there, and became a Ghost King. It was passed down to successive Grand Elders, and later nurtured with the user's own fresh blood. It had also undergone countless refinements, using special, essential blood. It was no longer something ordinary magical treasures could compare with. Duan Renly's strength, compared with many great ascension cultivators in the spirit realm, could only be considered average. But inside the Blood Banner space, it was entirely different. Even though Han Li's body was extremely strong, once he entered the Blood Banner space, the outcome was basically already decided. It had been nearly half an hour. By now, Han Li had probably already become blood food for the Heavenly Ghost. That little demon fox is an eyesore. Why don't we just kill her? The purple-bearded man said, turning to look at Lu Yur in the distance. Han Li had not only taken an exotic treasure from him, but also humiliated him in front of Duan Renly. He believed he could not take revenge on Han Li, so he vented his anger on Lu Yur. Elder Lu, don't be hasty. In my opinion, we should wait for Martial Uncle to come out, the beautiful woman said after thinking for a moment. What Fairy She says is right. I observed the silver flame on that little demon fox just now. It is not ordinary. It can devour the 9 heavens demon flames. It seems to be some kind of mutated true flame. We should wait a bit, the hunchbacked old man said, as if deep in thought. The one-eyed giant man folded his arms and focused on watching the blood clouds above, as if he had not heard his companions at all. Seeing this, although the purple-bearded man disagreed, he still nodded slightly. As they spoke, they did not cast any soundproofing technique, so Lu Yur heard everything. Her small body trembled slightly as she leaned against the rock wall, her delicate face turning pale. The one-eyed giant man suddenly spoke. Looks like there's a result. As soon as he spoke, the others immediately looked up into the sky. They saw the blood clouds roiling violently, then suddenly splitting into 2 halves, revealing the entire blood sphere. The purple-bearded man and the others all looked somewhat grim. Although the blood banner still radiated dazzling bloodlight, the enormous ghost claw on the banner had dimmed considerably compared to before. Before they could think further, blue light flashed on the surface of the blood banner. 2 streaks of radiance shot out from it and landed on the ground. The radiance withdrew at the same time, revealing Han Li and Duan Renly facing each other. Duan Renly stood there with his hands clasped, expressionless, his eyes coldly observing Han Li opposite him. Han Li's face carried a faint smile, his expression calm and unhurried. Brother! Lu Yur froze for a moment, tears streaming down her face. Without caring about anything else, she ran wildly to Han Li's side. Perhaps because she was too frightened, or because her magic power had drained away, her steps were unsteady. When she was still some distance from him, she suddenly tripped over something and pitched forward. At that moment, a gentle force immediately caught the little fox and delivered her to Han Li's side. Han Li flicked his sleeve. The silver flame that covered Lu Yur immediately contracted again, turning back into a silver firebird that shot back and burrowed into the young girl's body. The little demon fox opened her mouth, as if she wanted to say something, but sensing that the atmosphere around them was somewhat strange, She immediately fell silent and obediently stood to the side. Seeing that Han Li, who should have had his soul hooked and destroyed, was standing there alive and well, and even looked composed and unhurried, the purple-bearded man and the others could not help gaping and staring, frozen in place. Only after a long while did they react. They looked at each other, wanting to step forward and ask what the outcome was, yet also not quite daring to. But at this moment, Duan Renli's voice slowly sounded. Go get 100 caddies of Yin Spirit Stone. His tone was light, and his voice was not loud, but to the purple-bearded man and the others, it was like a thunderclap. Although they had already guessed it, hearing him say it still felt hard to believe. Duan Renli's meaning was very clear. He had lost. One of the Heavenly Ghost Sect's 2 Supreme Grand Elders, a great ascension cultivator who could summon wind and rain in the spirit realm, had been defeated by a young man with an ordinary face and not much age, defeated even within the sea of blood space of the Crimson Blood Heavenly Ghost Banner. Do you want me to say it a second time? Duan Renli's voice was still very calm. Yes! The 4, understanding the situation, hurriedly turned and flew away. Fellow Taoist Duan is truly generous. If Han were to refuse, that would be disrespectful, Han Li said, with a light smile, speaking slowly. You are impressive, Duan Renli said, staring deeply into Han Li's eyes and forcing out each word. Then he raised his hand, retrieved the blood banner in midair, and turned into a streak of black light that vanished without a trace. Not long after, inside the main hall at Emerging Cloud Peak of the Cold Flame Sect, although they had long guessed that this person was not ordinary, they truly could not have imagined that he possessed such astonishing divine abilities. Even Duan Renli of the Heavenly Ghost Sect was not his opponent. Nangong Chengshan sat in the main seat and gave a bitter smile. Fortunately, he is not an enemy of our Cold Flame Sect. Luo Jun let out a sigh, his voice and gaze somewhat complicated. The thefts at the Heavenly Treasure Hall and the Scripture Pavilion both happened after this. Elder Han entered Emerging Cloud Peak. I suspect it was most likely him, but at that time, no matter what, we could not suspect him. Nangong Chengshan thought for a moment and said, the crude big man also nodded lightly, clearly having guessed this as well, but he did not dwell on it. Instead, he shifted the topic. Even though the Heavenly Ghost Sect has always kept quiet, with such a huge commotion that day, how could it be hidden? Now the entire spirit realm has been shaken by this. I hear that quite a few forces affiliated with those 2 great sects have begun to want to establish ties with us. That's right, Valley Master Yu of Windsealing Valley and Mountain Lord Zhao of Mount Wuwei both sent trusted aides to seek a secret talk with the sect master. In fact, these people all want to take the chance to meet Elder Han once, confirm his true strength, and only then decide whether to pledge themselves to our Cold Flame sect. Unfortunately, not long after Elder Han returned, he immediately went into seclusion. The Supreme Grand Elder also passed down an order forbidding anyone from disturbing him, Nangong Chengshan said with a smile. The hall fell silent for a moment. Then Nangong Chengshan suddenly asked again, Elder Luo, in your opinion, what kind of person is this Elder Han? When Luo Jun heard this, his expression changed slightly. In the past, he could have spoken his thoughts directly, but now he truly could not speak carelessly. After weighing it for a long time, Luo finally replied seriously, I have not interacted with Elder Han for long. When Master Gu died, I brought him into the sect. Other than confirming that Elder Han is a body cultivator, I did not see anything particularly notable about. Now, thinking back carefully, I realize this person is meticulous and leaves no gaps in what he does. However, he is not the kind of person who is cold and unfeeling, abandoning old ties. Why do you say that? Nangong Chengshan frowned and asked. Didn't the sect master previously suggest that Elder Han move his cave dwelling to Sacred Fire Peak next to the residence of the Supreme Elder? But he politely declined every time, saying he was quite satisfied with his current cave dwelling and did not want the trouble. I also feel that this was him deliberately returning Emerging Cloud Peak a favor. After all, if a great expert like him is stationed there, the status of our peak within the sect will rise greatly, Luo Jun explained. That is indeed the case. The credit goes to Master Gu. When he introduced Elder Han to join our sect, after that we should double the amount of annual cultivation resources provided. Nangong Chengshan immediately agreed. Yes, Luo Jun quickly replied. A few days later, in the garden of a cave dwelling on the mountainside of Emerging Cloud Peak, a palace-dressed young woman, with skin as delicate and white as snow, and a breathtakingly beautiful appearance, walked slowly, followed by a tall woman in white. These 2 were not strangers at all. They were master and disciple, Yu Mengen and Gu Yunyue. Today, I suddenly thought again about what you said before. Elder Han's identity and origins truly are mysterious. When I traveled alongside him before, based on his manner, speech, and actions, I had already considered the boldest possibilities. But who would have thought that we still underestimated him, Gu Yunyue said with a bitter smile. I don't know how many years it will take before I can reach that level, Yu Mengen sighed sadly, her gaze drifting toward a far-off place. The human path is obscure, the immortal path is vast. Our lifespan is limited, yet we pursue the heavenly way. That is also an act that defies the heavens. It is not only a matter of talent, but also opportunity and destiny. This is also why many cultivators, for their entire lives, may not even reach foundation establishment, let alone form a core. Master has cultivated for more than 500 years and has been stuck at the nascent soul mid-stage for over 100 years. Advancing to the integration stage still has a little hope. As for the void refinement stage, it is extremely distant, let alone great ascension, which is only one short step from an immortal. Master wouldn't even dare to think of it, Gu Yunyue said. She stopped walking and lifted her head to look at the sky, looking somewhat dazed. Hearing this, Yu Mengyan also felt a bit sorrowful, a trace of gloom appearing in her eyes. The woman in white looked at the palace-dressed young woman, shook her head, and smiled. Master's talent is limited. Without special opportunities, my achievements will only reach this point. But Mengyan, you have a gifted spirit constitution, and your comprehension is extremely high. You entered the sect only 2 years ago, yet you already succeeded in foundation establishment. If nothing changes, your future achievements will surely surpass mine. It's not impossible that you could reach the void refinement stage, or even higher. It is all thanks to Master's wholehearted teaching and your generous rewards of many precious pills. Mengyan is deeply grateful, Yu Mengyan said from the bottom of her heart. Thanks to the blessings of Elder Han, for a very long time from now on, you won't need to worry about cultivation resources and pills, Gu Yunyue said with a wave of her sleeve. Yu Mengyan's beautiful eyes immediately brightened when she heard this. She said, speaking of Elder Han, in these 2 years, has Master gone to visit Elder Han once? But now the area of his cave dwelling has been managed into a forbidden ground of the sect. In the future, even if we want to go, we can't. After Gu Yunyue finished speaking, she let out a sigh, her face showing a few traces of regret. Not long after, Emerging Cloud Peak of the Cold Flame sect suddenly accepted a rogue cultivator as an outer sect disciple. This person had ordinary aptitude, was no longer young, and his cultivation was only at the core formation stage. Basically, he did not meet the requirements to be recruited at all. So for a time, this caused quite a bit of discussion among the disciples. Later, everyone learned that this disciple's name was Baishi, and that he was an old friend of Elder Han. Only then did the matter gradually quiet down. After that, many people, even peak elders whose cultivation far exceeded Baishi's, began to build connections with him. Of course, those were matters later on. After more than a month, at Jingtian Peak, in the rear mountain of the Kangyuan Temple, the main mountain, there was a small oval pond with jade green walls around it. Spiritual energy in the pond was dense, emitting thick white mist. In the middle, from time to time, fat golden fish would leap out of the water, shining brilliantly. On the grassland and rocks beside the small pond, more than 10 immortal cranes, lively and radiant, played happily, pecking at spirit grass growing scattered across the ground. From time to time, they stretched their necks and joyfully called out a few times. At that moment, a streak of purple escape light suddenly descended from the sky to the edge of the pond. The light gradually faded, revealing a tall man wearing a golden crown and a purple robe embroidered with golden script. At first glance, he looked 40 or 50 years old. On his face hung 3 long black beard strands, giving him a somewhat immortal bearing. After he landed, he glanced at the immortal cranes, then shifted his gaze toward the pond and the dark green stone wall on the other side, which was covered in moss and vines. A faint light flashed in the hand within his sleeve, and a sound transmission talisman shot out from his sleeve and flew into the stone wall, disappearing without a trace. After a moment, a faint layer of golden light slowly appeared on the stone wall, revealing a cave entrance taller than a person. The purple-robed Taoist did not hesitate, his figure flashed, and he immediately flew into the cave entrance. Inside the stone wall was a stone chamber of extremely vast area. In the center of the chamber was a 3-tiered platform. Each tier was carved all over with mysterious patterns. On top of it were arranged neat rows of oddly shaped small golden lamps. Together, they formed a strange, grand formation, from which came wave after wave of astonishing spiritual power fluctuations. At the center of the highest tier of the platform, a person wearing a loose, dazzling golden robe sat cross-legged on a cushion. From the side, he looked like a small mountain made of flesh. Reporting to the Supreme Grand Elder. Today, the Cold Flame sect just sent word that someone calling himself Elder Han wants to borrow our spirit-gathering platform for cultivation, and he promises to give ample thanks. Should we? The purple-robed Taoist bowed toward the flesh mountain and spoke respectfully. On the face of the man in gold, the flesh trembled slightly. He did not answer. Instead, he said slowly, "Previously, I ordered you to investigate this person's identity and origins. How is it?" His voice was extremely loud, booming and echoing within the stone chamber. We only know that this person suddenly appeared in Feng Country 2 years ago. Not long after, he entered the Cold Flame sect and became an outer sect elder. However, he rarely appeared, and no unusual matters about him spread outside. So even our spies within the Cold Flame sect only learned of his existence after the Heavenly Ghost sect suffered misfortune. The purple-robed Daoist replied after a moment of contemplation. Fine. If I were that old fox Sima Jingming, I would certainly also strictly seal off news of this shocking matter, the man in gold said. Recently, has the Heavenly Ghost sect shown any movements? He asked again. After this happened, the entire Heavenly Ghost sect has kept a low profile. Their disciples rarely appear. They have not revealed the slightest dissatisfaction or any intention of revenge, the purple-robed Taoist said after thinking for a moment. I know the temperaments of those two old things very well. Both are the type who must repay grievances. They will absolutely not swallow their anger like this. Just quietly watch how things change, the man in gold said with a snort, clearly not believing it. Then regarding borrowing the spirit-gathering platform, the purple-robed Taoist asked hesitantly. Since he has great ascension-level strength, it is naturally not convenient for us to turn hostile. Agree for now, the man in gold said after a moment of silence. The purple-robed Taoist's brows furrowed tightly. After hesitating for a moment, he said, I wouldn't dare deceive the Grand Elder. Several of the sect's supreme elders are somewhat worried. They fear that after this person cultivates on the spirit-gathering platform, his strength will rise another level. When that happens, our Kangyuan Temple will be suppressed by the Cold Flame sect. Also, the consumption of spirit exchange stones when opening the spirit-gathering platform is truly not small. We already have to calculate carefully in order to nurture the disciples' skills. If it must be wasted on an outsider, it really is a bit of a shame. The man in gold gave a faint laugh. Ridiculous. Having reached the Great Ascension level, how could one's strength increase in such a way? However, since he wants to use it, we cannot provide the necessary consumables. Let the Cold Flame sect compensate everything. Double. Yes, the purple-robed Taoist answered respectfully. 2 months later, within the Kangyuan Temple, the mountains rose and fell in layers. Among thousands of verdant peaks, clouds drifted lazily in the sky. From time to time, immortal cranes and spirit birds flew past, revealing the scenery of an immortal mountain-blessed land and the imposing presence of a great sect. At the center of the mountain range was a colossal peak towering into the clouds, far surpassing the surrounding mountains. At its summit, massive rocks were piled up, spiritual energy was abundant, and it was not covered by too much vegetation. In the middle stood a 9-tiered high platform shaped like a round pagoda. It was pure white, as if carved from fine jade. At each of the 4 corners around the platform sat an old man in brown robes, eyes tightly closed, cross-legged in meditation. As dusk approached, the slanting afterglow shone directly onto the stone surface at the summit, casting a soft orange-pink light. The white jade platform reflected an eerie radiance, making one feel intoxicated. At this moment, from far away in the sky, 2 streaks of red light flew in side by side. When they descended near the white jade platform, 2 figures were revealed, one fat, one thin. The 4 brown-robed elders sitting around the platform saw this and immediately stood, walking toward the 2 and respectfully paying their respects to the fat man in gold robes, who was like a mountain of flesh. Greetings, Supreme Grand Elder, they said. As soon as they finished speaking, their gazes shifted slightly to the side, assessing the unfamiliar young man standing beside the man in gold. This tall man with an ordinary appearance was Han Li, who had come to borrow the spirit-gathering platform. The man in gold robes waved his large hand like a fan without saying anything. The 4 immediately understood and silently retreated, sitting back down in their original positions. Fellow Taoist Han, the 4 of them are the people guarding the spirit-gathering platform. Although only one is an integration stage cultivator, the other 3 are all at the void refinement stage. They have worked together for many years and understand each other's minds. There will absolutely be no negligence in protecting you, the man in gold robes said with a booming voice and a smile. Han Li naturally did not want people from the Kangyuan Temple to protect him, but he also knew there was no way to refuse. He replied, his cheerful expression unchanged, "Then I must thank fellow Taoist Han Shan." The man in gold robes lifted his head to look at the sky and said, "It's already night. I won't waste fellow Taoist Han's cultivation time. If you need anything else, just ask those people." After speaking, he clasped his hand slightly toward Han Li. His body then transformed into a streak of red light and departed, disappearing without a trace in an instant. After Han Li watched him leave and swept his gaze around, he turned and walked forward to the stairs of the spirit-gathering platform. Slowly climbing up, the 4 people around the platform hurriedly formed hand seals. Sounds of chanting rose in waves. Under their bodies, rings of talisman symbols that had been hidden before immediately lit up, one after another. A golden light curtain that covered the entire spirit-gathering platform suddenly appeared, At the same time, Hanli arrived at the narrow entrance ahead, only tall enough for one person. A blue glow flashed in his eyes and vanished. He found that the light curtain before him, although it had considerable spiritual power fluctuations, was only a protective formation. He quickly walked through the light curtain and entered inside. As soon as Hanli entered, the light curtain behind him closed again, merging into the air and disappearing without a trace. He continued up the steps, and a strange surge of spiritual power immediately trembled in from all directions. Hanli felt somewhat surprised and looked around. He saw that on the stone steps under his feet and on the surrounding ground there were many small pits, densely distributed. If one did not observe carefully, one would not notice them at all. He activated his Spirit Eye divine ability and stared for a while. Then he discovered faint points of silver light flickering weakly at the bottom of those pits. They were traces left over the years from contact with the power of starlight. On the surface of the spirit gathering platform, there were also many circles and connecting curves. There were 3 to 5 connected patterns, extremely simple in shape, and more than 10 other connected patterns, extremely complex in shape. Together they formed a grid-like structure. Hanli went over to look at several of the patterns and gradually understood that these patterns were all star charts corresponding to the stars in the sky. Hanli walked up along the stone steps and went straight to the top of the spirit gathering platform. In the center, he saw a Big Dipper star chart. He observed it briefly, then sat cross-legged, tilting his face up toward the sky. The sky had turned deep blue, and points of starlight had begun to appear. Hanli slowly closed his eyes and quietly regulated his breathing. After about the time it takes an incense stick to burn, Hanli's eyelids moved slightly. He opened his eyes, his lips parting as he spoke 2 words. Begin. The 4 brown-robed elders, hearing this, flipped their hands and took out large, ivory-colored spirit exchange stones, embedding them into the ground before them. With a soft cracking sound, the 4 stones shattered at the same time. Streaks of white radiance lit up from within and flowed along the talisman symbols on the ground, quickly reaching the spirit gathering platform. All 9 tiers of the platform were covered in radiance, becoming gleaming and sparkling. Several star charts carved into it burst forth with dazzling light. From afar, the spirit gathering platform looked like a miniature starry sky, beautiful beyond compare. At this moment, the star-filled heavens harmonized with the radiance, making the space even brighter. Countless patches of silver light fell from the night sky like silver mist, covering the entire spirit gathering platform. Hanli, at the center, seemed as if he were sitting cross-legged within a thick concentration of starlight. He only felt a gentle starlight power enveloping all around. He drew in his focus, formed a hand seal, and softly chanted, circulating the lesser Big Dipper, Starlight Originar. A muffled boom sounded. 6 thick white pillars of light descended from the night sky, surrounding Hanli's body. Within each pillar, starlight power surged, sending out dense waves of tremors. Glittering rays of light shot out from the pillars, suddenly straight and sharp like countless steel needles stabbing into Hanli's body. At the same time, the silver mist covering the spirit gathering platform also seemed to be stimulated and began to circulate rapidly. Countless fragments of silver light gathered above the platform, forming a spiral pillar of light over 10 jang tall. Hanli's heart tightened slightly. Just moments ago, it had been extremely gentle, but now the starlight power had become extremely violent, the complete opposite of before. Hanli now endured unbearable pain, far beyond what could compare to cultivation at the first layer. His clothes were soaked with fresh blood, vast amounts of starlight, like steel needles, pierced and tore his skin. Blood flowed out, and, drawn by the power of the silver vortex, formed a hazy blood mist that wrapped around his entire body. The 4 brown-robed elders around the spirit gathering platform were all shaken. They had guarded this place for countless years, and this was the first time they had witnessed such violent starlight power. They had also never seen such a brutal method of forcibly infusing the body. At this moment, even an integration stage cultivator entering would only barely be able to protect their life. Yet at this moment, although Hanli was covered in blood, a radiance suddenly lit up around him. 6 small black circular mirrors flew out, each the size of a palm. They flew toward the pillars of light and entered into them. Black energy swirled around the round mirrors, which had an ancient style. Talisman patterns faintly appeared on the mirror surfaces. These were precisely the yin spirit stones he had taken from the Heavenly Ghost sect, refined into the Stellar Moon treasure mirrors. As the 6 treasure mirrors were cast out, black light flowed continuously. Groups of strange talisman symbols, as small as ants, circulated on their own, forming streaks of dazzling light that shot straight into the sky. They were clearly further increasing the power of starlight. "This is truly unbelievable," the integration stage cultivator muttered in shock. Before his words had even finished, the radiance of the 6 Big Dipper starlight pillars suddenly surged. A vast expanse of brilliant silver light abruptly appeared in the void. The radiance was like a silver river pouring down, forcefully rushing into the interior of the silver vortex. Half a year later, inside a stone chamber behind Jingtian Peak, the Taoist known as Han Shan, wearing a golden robe, sat cross-legged on a high platform with his eyes closed. His hands formed seals as he softly chanted incantations. Suddenly, the hand seals stopped, and he hurriedly stood up. A strange wind appeared out of nowhere inside the chamber. Wherever it passed, dozens of small golden lamps lit up one after another. Wisps of white smoke rose and drifted in the air, gathering into a hazy cloud of light. The surface of the light cloud blurred slightly, and a white-haired old man wearing a purple lotus crown gradually appeared. He was not tall, thin in build, and wrapped in a golden Taoist robe. Han Shan Taoist saw this, his body trembling slightly. He hurriedly knelt down, his respectful voice ringing out, "Rise. Today I have a few matters for you to handle," said the old Taoist with the purple crown, waving his hand. "Please give your instructions, ancestor," Han Shan Taoist said, standing up and clasping his hands. "First matter. The Hao origin stones you have been supplying are acceptable. For the next 10 years, you will need to gather even more," the old Taoist in the purple crown instructed. "Yes," Han Shan Taoist responded. "Second, the star-transferring mystic art that I created back then today, my state of mind is different, and I've made some improvements to the technique. Take this and place it into the scripture pavilion," the old Taoist continued, issuing several important instructions in succession. Han Shan Taoist did not hesitate at all and agreed to each matter in turn. Finally, the old Taoist added, "There is one more urgent matter. You must handle it carefully." Hearing this, Han Shan Taoist's expression turned solemn. He focused his gaze on the old Taoist and quietly waited for further instructions. The old Taoist waved his sleeve. The light curtain immediately rippled, and a sheet of golden paper about 1 chi long passed through the curtain and floated gently before him. "If there is any news of this person, report to me immediately," the old Taoist said in a gentle but serious tone. Han Shan Taoist took the paper. On it was a drawing of a young man. It was none other than Han Li. "What is this? Is there something wrong?" the old Taoist asked calmly. "Reporting to Ancestor, this person is currently inside our temple. Are you certain it is this person?" Han Shan Taoist asked, his voice sounding a bit hurried. The old Taoist's expression did not change. "It is indeed this person. Although he looks much thinner, his bearing and appearance are exactly the same. It is him." Han Shan Taoist thought for a moment, then said firmly, "Why is this person inside Kangyuan Temple?" The old Taoist nodded. "Ancestor, please forgive me. You are an elder of the Cold Flame sect." Han Shan Taoist first apologized, then reported all the information he had obtained about Han Li. After hearing this, the old Taoist showed a hesitant expression and remained silent for a long time. Cold sweat appeared on Han Shan Taoist's forehead. He truly did not dare to breathe loudly and could only wait in silence. This person has a very significant background. Most likely, he is a former immortal from the immortal realm, and today, he is also being heavily sought after by certain people from the immortal realm. You must not alert the enemy or stir up trouble. Before my arrangements are made, no matter what, you must keep him within Kangyuan Temple, the old Taoist said solemnly. "Yes," Han Shan Taoist immediately responded. This concludes this episode. Everyone, remember to press like and subscribe to the channel to watch the following parts.